As we come to our last session, we're going to be dedicating and opening up our minds once more to the topic of, or this one time to the topic of From Muse to Machine, AI and how it's changing music creation. And it's going to be we're going to be really diving into this exciting frontier in music today, which is how AI is not just a tool, but is a collaborator in creativity. And so we want to look at how across the music making process, artists, producers, and developers are using AI to generate, co-write, and inspire entirely new forms of expression. So thank you everyone for your attention and for joining us. And I'm really excited to introduce the person who will be leading us through this conversation. Just a few words before I bring her up onto the stage. She is an advisor and creative leader at the intersection of music and technology. She's a classically trained composer and vocalist. She has worked across the industry, from co-producing in the Woods Festival to coaching Brit and Mercury Award-winning artists. She's the CEO of DAACI, or DAACI. She led the company through a pivotal growth phase, putting creators at the heart of its AI music vision. Please help me in welcoming to the stage Rachel Lyske. Thank you.
Hello. Love that we're headlining this stage. It's very exciting. And it's DAACI, and I am no longer the CEO. I am freshly off the press. I am a lone ranger here, stepped down last month, so you got me flying solo. It is an absolute delight to be here with you all today. Thank you for having me, and we've got some amazing panelists for a very important panel. From Muse to Machine, how AI is changing music creation. So we all know that for centuries, music has been driven by human imagination, but also by human-created technology, whether it's inventing an instrument, a piano, whether it's composers putting pen to paper, whether it's producers and artists experimenting with new sounds and pushing studios. More and more, though, at the moment, we're seeing as a new collaborator into this creative process, artificial intelligence, dum-dum-dum. It's not just behind the scenes anymore. It's generating melodies for us, it's co-writing lyrics, it's helping spark new ideas, it's doing all sorts of things, and it's challenging us to rethink maybe what it means to be a creator, an artist, or maybe it's not. It does bring incredible opportunities, new creative horizons and workflows, but also very important questions. Where does human creativity end? Where does machine intelligence begin? What does authorship mean now? Can we even call it authorship anymore? And what are we doing as developers, as artists, as platforms to be responsible? So, these guys are going to answer all of those questions, and I'm just going to sit back. But we have an amazing group of panelists, and they're going to share with us their challenges, their experiences, the possibilities that they think for the future. So I'm going to let them all introduce themselves. We're going to start with Rithik.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rithik Kundu. As it says on the slide, I am the head of strategy at Joker Deck, head of music technology strategy, as well as the co-founder of NYU Generative Audio and AI. The third thing over there, that's a social audio startup that I am advising for AI implementation. I started from NYU Steinhardt's music technology program, and as we continue, so I'm assuming that the next, head of music tech strategy and co-founder of Gen Audio and AI, a research group for generative music and exploring the interdisciplinary nature of how artificial intelligence intersects with other emerging technologies as well as music itself. I started out as a producer working on hip hop music, and then last year, through some connections, found my way into the generative AI research space. It's been a very exciting time, and very recently got brought on to Joker Deck as their head of strategy. Now, what is Joker Deck? It's a first of its kind angel syndicate with 50 to 250K checks and 3.5K to 15K LP commitments. As a syndicate, we specialize in investing in all types of music tech, especially emerging tech. So AI is a big part of this. And the idea of the Joker in a deck of cards is that they can assume any role. So we find a way for anyone to get involved, whether you are an investor, founder, an artist, or someone who just walks through spaces. And so you can get involved through that QR code right there if you all want to scan that. I'll give a second for that. So seriously, if you are a founder, or if you're an investor, or you're an artist, I want to hear from you. If you're someone who's just interested in getting involved, I want to hear from you as well. The whole idea of what I do is bridging people together. So I'm assuming people had a second there. Some other stuff I've done. Some of my other projects, I was working for a BBC correspondent last year. I've done some work with Udio as part of NYU Gen Audio and AI. Interned at a rival artist, the purple logo there, scored a film. Joker Deck is in talks with Abbey Road and Master Channel. And the other thing that I've done are a couple of research papers, which on this slide here. Building a Simple AI DAW is a paper that I did with Sundar, who unfortunately cannot be here. But this was exploring the theory of what an AI DAW looks like. Another paper or sort of study that I'm working on is called The Future of Music Production. Is AI taking over? And this is advised by the Grammy winner, Mr. Sonic. And it's the idea right now is it's a blind listener test between human and AI-generated music to see what do we prefer as listeners if we have no idea what's going on. Now, those are the ways to contact me, and you can find me on LinkedIn with Rithik Kundu, and I'm going to pass it off.
Your inbox is probably about to get really, really busy. Thank you. Okay, Rebecca, let's introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Might wait 1 second for the slides. So hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. I'm a researcher, an HCI researcher at Fraunhofer IES by day, that is here in Germany, and the head organizer of the AI Song Contest by night. That is a volunteering project I do. We're a group of 6 very, very cool people. And the first edition was in 2020, so we started many, many years ago. And since then, we've had an edition every year. So what is the AI Song Contest? It's actually an international song competition. You might call it the global Eurovision, maybe. And it's a music competition for humans working with fair AI tools creating music. So it's really important to us to connect artists with fair AI tools, show them what is possible and how to enhance their creative workflow. This year, this is very cool, and we will be in Amsterdam, that is at the Melkweg. Currently we have finished the submission phase, so you cannot join this session, this year's edition anymore, unfortunately. But you're also invited to vote in October, and we have a lot of, I think, over 150 teams who participated this year, submitted their song and their process document in which they also describe what they do, what tools they use, also maybe some issues they face when working with AI, which is very interesting, and this is what we evaluate in the AI Song Contest. So it's not only the song that we evaluate, but also the process behind it, how people work together and how people work with AI.
Amazing. We're going to hear more about that, I'm sure. Sam.
All right, I think we have a video here. I don't know how to play it. Any Okay,
Maybe
we're not going to
press
read the video.
button forward.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Watkinson. The formatting on this slide seems to be having a bit of a moment, but I am an engineer and the head of the Create team at Suno. Some of you might have heard of it. Before working at Suno, I was working for my own startup, a company called WavTool. We were building professional-grade in-browser digital audio workstation software. Today at Suno, I'm working on sort of a descendant to this project, something called Suno Studio, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment. Suno is a music company, and our mission is to create a world where anybody can make great music. On screen right now is the Create page on Suno, which is sort of I would say, like the heart of the application today, where you can generate it or create a song by typing in a text prompt or by uploading some pre-existing audio or combining these things in all sorts of interesting ways. And we've seen artists of all levels of skill and experience using Suno in some really, really interesting creative ways. One pattern that started to emerge was we saw people coupling this create process on this page with a digital audio workstation that they would use in the sort of the rest of their normal creation process. And then sort of going back and forth between Suno and their DAW, they would be going through a lot of these processes of exporting, importing, time aligning, rendering, uploading, and then covering in Suno again, then exporting, importing, time aligning, et cetera, et cetera. So this is part of what motivated us to pursue Suno Studio, which is on screen right now. This is a project that's in the works. It's going to be releasing later in the fall. And you can probably get a pretty good idea of what we're going for here. We have sort of the well-known Suno Create process coupled very tightly with this high-quality, very intelligent music editing timeline. There's quite a lot going on below the surface here to make this all work. It is really quite a well-engineered piece of music editing tech dominating the screen here. We put a lot of emphasis on things like understanding the timing of the music that's being dropped in. We think, although many things are likely to change in music technology, probably you're still going to want to be able to align the timing of two clips in 10 years. So a lot of emphasis goes into these like sort of bedrock capabilities that we think are really fundamental to sort of high quality music creation. Ultimately, at the end of the day, musicians shape everything at Suno. I mean this very literally. We are a company composed primarily of extremely talented musicians. I have about 15 years of experience producing music. I've been playing piano since I was 6 or 7. I'm usually the least musical person in the room when I'm hanging out with my coworkers. But after we create something and bring it out to the world, really one of the great joys of working with Suno is getting to see the potential that creatives out there in the world find in the technology, the fascinating ways that they find to use it. And I'm very excited to discuss this all with my fellow panelists here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Brilliant. This is going to be a good one. Okay, so we're going to dive straight in. And Rithik, I'm going to go to you. We're going to first start looking at these possibilities in the panel title, The Possibilities. So with your role at Joker Deck, you look at investing in emerging music and emerging technologies. What is the most exciting innovations that you're seeing right now?
Gotcha. Well, there are a lot of different innovations emerging with the technology that is available today. It's really cool seeing what people are doing and what ideas people are coming up with now. So, obviously on the side of AI, we have, full-blown generators, like what Sam is working on at Suno. We also have more creative assistive tools that one of the previous panelists were talking about, stuff like, generative MIDI, like Lemonade AI, or co-piloting software like Output or Owl Duet. Outside of that, though, there are some very interesting things that we've seen with emerging technology, such as having a virtual production sessions that are enabled by zero latency technology, or fan engagement technology that's enabled by artificial intelligence, allowing artists to communicate with their fans in a way that's never before been seen. Another example is, on the side of full-blown generation, stuff that is more fine-tuned. There's a company that we've been looking at called SoundSculpt, which is, they do compositions for film scores, which is a very interesting niche. So, as we've seen the space evolve over the last couple of years, what's really cool is seeing not just what's just sort of on the front end of things, like generation and assistive tools, but also what's on the back end. Like yesterday, my founder Colette and I got off the phone with Tom from Alloy. Don't know if he's here, but he's working on a sync licensing platform that's all encompassing, using the new technology and tech stacks that are available to create today to streamline and centralize all of the licensing info that you may need for a sync into one streamlined data point, or one streamlined set of data points. As it is, there's also stuff like Untitled, which, show of hands, how many of you guys have heard of that? Yes. And how many of you guys use Untitled for showing your tracks to people? Okay, so we got one. That's a personal favorite of mine, just because I've used that to show my own demos to people. And, so for people who aren't familiar, Untitled is like a Google Drive / Dropbox for musicians to put in their unfinished tracks. And it has very direct WAV and MP3 support. This is something that I just find really fascinating as a piece of emerging tech that's been around in the 2020s. And I think it's a very practical thing. So just going off on that tangent, hopefully this sort of shows that, with all of these exciting technologies that have been around and that are now coming about because of new research, we have all these new ideas that people are getting to explore. And it's really cool being in the front seat of getting to explore all of that.
I'm sure it is, absolutely. Rebecca, with the AI Song Contest, you've seen a very wide range of cultural and technical approaches to creating AI music.
Definitely, yeah.
What's been the most surprising or inspiring way you've seen AI used to reflect the cultural identity or storytelling?
So we've had 6 editions, so there's really there are so many entries, of course. But what I would think of is how a team from Galicia actually used AI to not only preserve their cultural or musical traditions, but also enabled other people. So what they did was that they built a tool that is based on Galician music, and Galician music has certain non-Western features. So they have the sound of pots and pans. For example, that is really crucial and that is important to when creating Galician music. So they created a tool for others to use these sounds, and and then mixed their traditional ways of making music with AI, and also enable many other people to use these sounds and use them to have a different, maybe the same creative workflow, of course, but also different outcomes, different new sounds, and to create something new. So I think, that is one of the ways where you see okay, what is happening here? This is really special what AI can do, and how AI can have an impact on workflows. I think it's still very painful. The creative workflows are still the same. They're long because we really want to encourage artists to use these tools. It's not really that people only type in a prompt and then let something generate it, but it's really a time, a long line of many tools that were used, and it's a long way to create a musical piece that they submit, but still it's very inspiring to see what can be done. And
especially with things like that, reducing bias and things, that's so much work to be done. But talking about accessibility, and Sam, I'm going to come to you. So obviously you've said that there's many ways that people can use Suno. One of them is from creating whole songs from text prompts. Now, how do you balance accessibility and depth for that? So ensuring that casual users and professional users can feel creatively empowered, and what are the challenges there or possibilities for people?
Yeah, one thing that has been really interesting to see, both through the development of WAVTool and Suno, is there's much less of a correlation than you would expect between skill and experience level and the level of depth and control that you want out of one of these products. Very often, the users who are most sort of keen to have more editing control and more sort of like detailed influence over the things that they're creating are people who are using Suno exclusively for their music creation, have sort of no prior music creation history. They've made something that is really meaningful to them, a song that feels quite powerful and has like taken on some great meaning. And they want to go deeper on it and change specific things, and they come to us asking for these sorts of features. And then on the other side, we've seen artists at like the absolute top of their game having tremendous fun just using the sort of most straightforward use of the Suno Create page just to come up with ideas, just to sort of like rapidly get 100 things out that they can listen to for inspiration that are going to kick off the session that they wind up sort of going through with their usual process. So ultimately, to answer the question, the way that we balance these things really is we're sort of always trying to do a great job of both. Because at the end of the day, it could be a user of any skill level, a musician with any history that wants the fast, immediate, give me some inspiration, give me a bunch of ideas version, or the very in-depth, I want to spend hours on this song and make it perfect and go in and control every single detail.
Great. Well, we're going to have more on that too. And actually, I'm going to start with you again. It's a nice segue on. So there are obviously technical challenges with that, but also we need to address the ethical challenges as well that we face. So what do you think those technical and ethical challenges are, especially with scaling AI music platforms like Suno?
Yeah, well, I think like with the scale of Suno, to summarize it in a single word, I think diversity is the source of many of the challenges here. We have users with a incredibly wide range of skill levels. Artists who come expecting full-fledged tools, who come expecting specific features and interfaces, and artists who come with no expectations at all, who are sort of discovering this for the first time. We also have a very wide range of genres that people want to create, a lot of sort of distinct cultures coming together in music. And I think a common misconception is that the pursuit for us would be to create something that is very good at making average music. In reality, the pursuit for us is to make something that's very good at making great music as defined by each and every creative person that's using the product, which is a very interesting and complicated thing to optimize for with obviously many very different facets. Back at WavTool, we were quite small, and we had the luxury of kind of choosing to focus in on one specific area, one specific set of use cases and skills. And within Suno, we really do have to sort of adapt this product to be extremely effective for whatever history, whatever it is that you're bringing with you when you sit down to use this to create music. Okay,
brilliant. So Rithik, from your perspective, you're bridging academia and industry through your projects. What do you think the research community still needs to solve before AI can be kind of a seamless creative partner? What work do you think still needs to be done?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that a big part of this, and it's not just the research community, but all of us, what do we want AI to be able to do? There's so many different research projects out there, from instrument gen to MIDI GPT to music gen, which is, these are all sort of baseline papers that have allowed for, the creation of some of the products that we see today that we're talking about in these panels. But, the big thing that we need to figure out is, do we want to emphasize full-blown generation? Do we want to emphasize assistive AI? Do we want it all-encompassing? And how do we want to approach any ethical concerns that we may or may not have? I think another part of this, kind of delving in more, is that, the research community, at least in NYU Gen Audio and AI, is a little divided on that stance of, to begin with, do they want to be using AI as a tool with music? And, some people address ethical concerns. Some people don't want to, some people want to go all in, kind of like Sam was saying, some people want to go all in. Some people want fine-tuned control. Some people want something different entirely. There's no one right answer. And I think that, the research community needs to figure out what exactly do we want? What exactly do we all want? And how do we bridge that with, how do we bridge that with the current landscape of music production? I think it was said in another panel earlier today that, or it might have been through a conversation I had, that, to bridge the current generative technology with the current workflows of music producers and songwriters, there is a bit of a technical gap, partly because, both systems are so complex. We need to figure out how to integrate these together and, how to make it into something that everyone will be satisfied with in one way or another.
Yeah, it's tough because no one writes the same way, no one creates the same way, no one thinks the same way.
Exactly.
So it's hard to prioritize what's first. Rebecca, you must see lots of patterns in how audiences are responding, with the people you said earlier on vote for your join the voting for the song contest. How are you seeing a difference between people responding to AI-assisted versus human-written songs, if you're seeing a difference at all?
So I think we know the stories like from years ago where people felt very tricked, finding out after a concert, for example, especially with classical music, people did that, and that they said after concert, and the second piece you heard was actually completely AI generated, and people felt furious. Our community, of course, is very open to technology and all that, but what we see from our project, from the AA Song Contest, is that the example of the team from Galicia that I've already mentioned, they even went to a local TV station and performed live on TV, making that very transparent. That is kind of a mix of tradition and AI, and it was a great chance to see how people really loved the piece, and people were voting loads for it. Also, of course, feeling a lot of pride in seeing their tradition on stage at an international competition. But also, people knew it, and also there was a lot of conversation about AI music following up that performance, and also with it. So there's also an opportunity to give. Have an educational approach that is also fun because everybody can relate with music. Everybody knows music, and it's also an easy access to start this conversation also in our society. About like AI music and what we want to use it for.
Exactly, and what we want to use it for. I was going to say, are there any extra insights that you gained about the human AI collaboration whilst you were, looking at these many teams who are doing it? Was there anything specifically that stood out that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do before, a difference in the creation process? Like, is there any specific insight that you would share about what you've seen?
So people hand in the song and the process doc, so this is why we also have a lot of information about their process and how and for what they used AI tools. And people do say that they used it for inspiration. This is also what you've mentioned, just like to get, I'm stuck somewhere in the process, I just need some help to go further. And then they find, okay, this is like their writer's blockage, like kind of solved with an AI tool, which can be amazing and also very relieving for artists, of course. So we've seen that pattern, and then we've also seen kind of that collaboration a lot between really techie people and artists, and very new ways of collaboration that came with it. So, some years ago, it was the artists had to be very, very hacky themselves. I think they've been mentioned before. DataBots, for example, they're kind of research and artists. So you needed people who really who knew what to do and were really hacking themselves. Now we have rather collaboration between researchers and tech people and artists, and that is also really interesting what comes out of this. And we do not say like using AI is the future and everybody has to use it, but it's such a nice way to have new forms of collaboration, also new forms of creative workflows using different tools, and sometimes even such as Database did. They've been participating since the first edition. We're very lucky about that, and they always come up with something completely new, mixing 50s a cappella with hardcore metal, punk, and this is something. This is something that that hasn't been there before, and we're really looking forward to all the things that come up with mixing unexpected things maybe.
Fantastic. So that kind of nicely leads us on to shifting boundaries. And Sam, I'm going to come to you here, because when we talk about, and we've talked about it a lot, we've all just been saying is AI is a co-creator. Where do you draw the line between human authorship and machine contribution? And is authorship even the right word anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's very tricky to draw the line. I don't think that the changes in technology recently, I don't think that recent changes in technology have actually made that big a difference for for this question and obscuring it. I mean, there's always been the potential to make a song by downloading a whole bunch of samples and throwing them together with very little, creative intent or thought, and wind up with something that sounds quite good and that you can, release and put your name on. And using something like Suno or any of these other AI tools, it's very possible to put hours and hours of work into something where, in the end, every individual sample that comes out of the final track was emitted by an AI model, but still have just a tremendous amount of creative intent and authorship put into that process. What I think it ultimately comes down to is how the artist, how the creator sort of chooses to place themselves in the process. And something that's been coming up a lot today is around this issue of sort of like transparency and trust in the creative process. So an idea that I'm personally quite fond of is that I hope that we're moving towards a world where more people are more transparent about their processes, where people who are using AI are making sure their fans are aware of exactly how, and that people can sort of like fully embody their creative intent in the way that they use these things in a very sort of transparent way. One story that I think is interesting that sort of got me thinking a lot about this authorship idea recently. There's a person that I work with at Suno. Their name is Ben. Ben is a songwriter and a professor at the Berklee College of Music. Ben previously worked as a very prolific songwriter in LA, working with teams of other songwriters, and Ben told me that they would be creating about 200 songs per year, sort of minimum, in an average year during this time in their career. Upon moving back to Boston and resuming teaching at Berklee, Ben had a lot more going on in their life, and this resulted in that number dropping down to 5 to 10 songs per year being created. But once Suno cleared a certain level of quality and was starting to be very effective as sort of a co-creative partner in Ben's writing process, then Ben found like a 10x increase in the number of songs they were creating per year, just as a result of sort of having this, this creative partner in the Suno product to sort of bounce these ideas off of, to sort of keep the velocity high and to get more songs finished. And so I think from the perspective of a songwriter in that position, being in a room full of other writers, bouncing ideas around, you have, I think, a very sort of similar kind of agency over the final product that you do when it's just you one-on-one with something like Suno or another songwriting tool. And sort of how you choose to present yourself and your role in that creative process is, I think, a very important part of your identity as an artist.
Well, let's hear from one. What do you think? So, Rithik, as someone who does create music as an artist, how do you personally balance that? And how do you present yourself? And how do you balance that role of your human creativity, but the machine intelligence, if there is any, in your own projects?
I wouldn't say it's as much of a balance, per se. It should be more of a complementary relationship. I think of machine intelligence in a similar way that I think of digital audio workstations. They're meant to allow us to create more than we would have been able to otherwise. For example, DAWs enabled us to record without, needing as large a console, for example, right? And so if we think about machine intelligence as being able to help us co-create in a similar fashion without needing as much time or, as many VSTs, it could be seen in a similar fashion. One anecdote here is, so about 2 months ago now, I was working on a project with a friend of mine from a major, and we were working on, an artist development project, working to get someone, to have as many tracks as possible, as many demos as possible, and I was leading a production session for this. And the instrumental that I made for that session used generative MIDI from Lemonade. And, nobody batted an eye when they heard it. Nobody went and thought, oh, is this AI? Is this not? And to be fair, Lemonade is an interesting example because they do all of their data training directly with their artists, and they're compensated and all of that. So it's very precise, but the larger point there is that it was integrated into the process rather than having to balance my AI side, so to speak, versus my music side, so to speak. They both work in tandem, and I think that's the way that we should be thinking about these tools in the future, because, as it is, they are allowing for new possibilities. They allow for, for me personally, I found that machine intelligence allows me to either, take my mind off of work that I would have had to do otherwise, or come up with new ideas. Another example is Isotope's Ozone software. I don't know, a show of hands again, how many of you are familiar with Isotope? Okay, nice. Glad there's some more recognition there. And how many of you guys have used Ozone? Nice. Okay. So, the beauty of that that software is it's an ML algorithm that allows you to have, quick mastering. And not only that, but be able to fine-tune the initial patterns that it comes up with. And I think this is a great example of, something that I've read a lot about, AI being able to quote-unquote do your chores. It allows me, as a producer, to focus more on production rather than mastering. And, albeit maybe I would also, want to get the ear of one of my mastering engineer friends. But it allows for a quick demo that's close to production quality.
So if you were now to give some advice, and I'm going to throw this out to everybody, some advice for people, young artists or people who haven't used AI, what advice would you give to them experimenting or starting out with using tools? Rebecca, I'm going to look at you first.
I think maybe reflect a bit before using AI tools. I think it's very, very important, especially for young artists, to find their voice and what makes them unique. I think what we've seen also when it comes to visual art is that it kind of becomes all of the same things. It's very easy to make something sound and also look very nice. It's super easy to have a large output, but I think it's really important to reflect on, okay, do I know all the steps? Have I been through the whole process before I really know, okay, I'm so good at this, and I really know how I want to sound like, how I want to, where I want to set my focus on. So I think that is very important before trying tools. And I think it's also very important that you know what is happening to your work when it comes to copyright, for example. Like, do I know how the whole system works? We also advise, we have a list for fair tools. There are also certificates who also have lists of tools that are ethical. So I think that is also very important to know what is going on and to use tools that are respecting copyright, for example.
Rithik, advice from you for young artists?
Okay, so as As a young artist, I would say that, so thinking back to what I said about the research side of things, we don't entirely know what the next step is, and we don't entirely know what we want in. I'm not speaking for everyone in the community, of course. But I do think that, the beauty of all of this is that, the future is yet to be written. So be a part of the story. I think that diving into using these tools, especially if you're unfamiliar with them, is very important. Get to know what actually makes sense for you. And if there's not something around, start thinking about the idea that you might want to build. There's all sorts of vibe coding tools out now that can allow you to ideate something, in a rough sketch, something that might be useful to you as an artist, for generations or for other assistive tools that you may want to use. And I'm going to take this one step further is if you're a researcher, take that as well. Take that idea that, we don't entirely know what the future is going to look like here, and run with it. Run with it and figure out, okay, not only what doesn't exist and what problems need to be solved, but what problems exist that you want solved for yourself. Chances are, if there's a question out there that you're thinking about, other people are thinking about it too. And even if no one is thinking about something, make people think about it. Make people understand the relevance of what you're doing. And same goes to an artist. Make people understand the relevance of what you are writing. And if AI tools can help with that, then let them roam free.
Sam, you're nodding a lot. So what would be, I think you, not just for artists, but going on as a developer as well, what would be your word of wisdom?
Okay, well, I guess my word of wisdom for artists would be, I think it's very important to hold on to your agency, by which I mean it's really up to you how you choose to engage AI tools in your creative process, whether you choose to engage AI tools in your creative process. And you really shouldn't let anybody tell you what to do or what not to do. And likewise, you really shouldn't let the AI tools tell you what to do or what not to do. I think your identity as a creator comes from sort of being true to yourself and to your own taste. And we have a lot of things entering the world now that can make decisions. And what you choose to release and put your name on, I think should be a carefully considered and creative choice on your part. So I would encourage folks to sort of keep that in mind as they're choosing how to make use of the things that are happening and changing in the music industry now. For developers working on audio products, DM me, because I do not get to talk to anywhere near enough people who are doing this kind of thing, and it is one of the most interesting, challenging domains in software development, in my opinion. But there is, I think, so much to discover now. Like, we're really seeing, the rules are changing very quickly, the possibilities are changing very quickly. I think standards and references in the creation of music applications that have been stable for many years are now suddenly becoming unstable. Suddenly there are going to be new paradigms, new approaches that make more sense and result in better creative experiences than the things that I think are now sort of very well worn in these pieces of software that have been around for decades. So it's, I think, just to back up what Rithik was saying, this is an excellent time to be thinking about new music software, new music technology, whether you are creating AI models yourself or whether you're operating in a position more like me and the team that I'm leading at Suno, where we're really just focused on how to connect the models to the creative human beings that have a job to do, have something they want to express, and for us, sitting in that position of just trying to find out how to maximize the creative potential of the technology is a fascinating place, and there's a lot more to be discovered, a lot more to be built, so it's a great time to be thinking about these sorts of things.
Absolutely is. I'd like to open it up. I've asked lots of questions, and I know you all have lots of questions that you'll want to ask, so I'm not going to take up any more of that time. Hands up for who wants to ask a question, and we've got a mic here.
question to Sam. I've used your engines quite a lot for commercial-wise and quite successful, so thank you for all that. In the
You're
same
welcome.
way,
Thank
I
you.
would ask ethnic-wise of how you pay these people who offer you the samples and these ideas. Because for me, in a market what's quite commercial, like producing music for advertisement or movies, it's quite repetitive that the best stuff you guys offer is used quite a lot, and these people become famous by using these samples. So my question is, how do you honorate these people, and how do they get paid?
I'm sorry. When you say samples, what are you referring to?
Well, I'm looking for some movie stuff or SFX or whatever. I use your engine with Pro Tools, blah, 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 and I can use pretty fast the stuff you were offering. But these people who made this, do they get money, or how does this work? I've never found that out.
I'm afraid I do not have an answer to your question. It's simply not the part of the business that I work in.
Hiya. Actually, it's tangential to that because it's about value as well, but more so about the value of music and its place in society. How do you think these tools, ethical or not ethical, all of this included in the same umbrella, how do you think the prevalence of these tools will change how we value music, the place of the musician, the commodification of music even in general? Do you have a hot take or an opinion?
Rebecca, do you want to go?
Ah, okay. Oh, no. I was going to say all of us. I think we'll see how many people listen to virtual artists and all that. I think it will not. We will have humans. We want to see, watch humans on stage performing. We want to share their stories. We want to share their heartbreak and all that. So I think it will not come to the point where people say, okay, this is not. I think that there's more education and more is happening, and people start to understand what's happening with AI. And I think as long as you said, hey, this is I've been working for 4 months on that track, and I did the mastering with AI tools. I think there's nothing really bad about this. I think what we do have to open up is a discussion on how do we communicate about this. We've also heard that in the previous panels. It's not really cool to say, hey, I used AI for this and for that. And whether it comes to music, to research, it's the same. So I think this is also what we should talk about, so that we have that conversation and everybody sees, okay, actually everybody's kind of using this or that plugin, whether it's fair or not.
Kind of going off of that, I think it's important to watch, every point of view on this. For every person who wants to commodify music, there is someone who wants the exact opposite, right? And we're going to see how that conversation develops with, regulations that, develop over the course of the next few years. I think that's important to keep an eye on. And we can see from there, how people prefer that, what people prefer altogether. Another thing with the project I'm working on, the future music production, the blind listener test is also a good, first segue into, what do people like? Because if they like AI generated music without knowing it, or vice versa, that shows two things. It shows the progress that we've been able to make in technological development, but it also shows, sort of subconsciously who is for, not necessarily who is for and against commodifying music, but who is for and against this new sort of age of music. In the subconscious sense.
A couple things I want to add here. This is going to be a warm take. I think, as a thought experiment, if you consider the great works of Taylor Swift, and you imagine a world where Taylor Swift herself does not exist, but the exact same songs were created by a model, I don't think you get a cultural moment anywhere near as significant just from the music that comes out the other side. I think the human being behind it is critical, and I don't think anything we do with technology is likely to change the fact that at the end of the day, what makes Taylor Swift's music so powerful is that we are connecting this to an understanding of a fellow human being that we can relate to, in, as different as her life may be from ours. I think AI-generated music that does not relate to any human experience and that does not have any real reference point in our own personal experience as human beings probably doesn't. It has a lower ceiling on how truly compelling it can be versus something that is very carefully and intentionally authored by somebody who has a story to tell and something that they want to connect you to. I had a really interesting conversation with one of my coworkers who told me his theory of slop, which I'd like to try to recount for you now. Pat's theory of slop is that it comes about when you have content that on the surface is very high fidelity, has a lot of detail, and has sort of all of the signatures of something that has had a lot of effort put into it. But when examined in depth, it becomes clear that there is not, in fact, a deeper meaning behind this. That this was just sort of created, off the cuff, without something really powerful to be expressed. And your mind encounters this thing which, up till now, anytime you've seen something that has had this much effort put into it, it's always been the product of somebody who had something, very deep and very sort of like moving behind it. But you find that sort of the deeper intent is not present in this thing that still has the surface level hallmarks of something that's very high quality. So a question that I think is really interesting for companies like Suno is how can we help people to create with these tools that help them create genuinely great sounding music in a way that does in fact express something that they are feeling and perceiving on a deeper level. Whether that is for a commercial purpose or just for their own enjoyment, I suspect most people have feelings and experiences that the world would be a better place if they were able to express through music in a very sort of complete way. So I hope that we can sort of help create more really high quality, in the deepest sense, music by sort of developing deeper connections with the creative people that are using these tools because they have something to say, something they really want the rest of us to hear.
Next question.
Hey Sam, or am I audible? Quick question for you. I mean, just a quick background. I was a product designer in Native Instruments, run a vinyl techno record label, Plain Treasure. I was really surprised to try out Suno, both as a user and as a product designer for, music gear. What I was kind of missing was some kind of a granular interface, I was making like a 909 track, like 909 drums with a bass line and some, some pads, right? And the question is, sorry, thank you. The question is, would Suno offer some kind of a granular interface, like a randomizer on a drum machine, or like a pattern generator? And I think that would really help users to like what you said, like express a bit more. This was what I was kind of missing. So just wondered this.
Yeah. Okay. I love this question. I love the idea. I think a lot of what we're trying to do with Studio is really sort of open the door to more fun, playful, expressive ways of getting a song started, of sort of getting into the system, the idea, the creative intent, that melody that's stuck in your head. And I certainly think that there's a lot of room for interfaces like you're describing to be a part of this. I mean, really, one way to think about what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take whatever it is that you have, whatever starting point you have for the song, in whatever form you are most able to express it, and then help you realize that, help you turn that into the piece of music that you really want to exist, to bring to the world. And interfaces like that, like the drum machine, step sequencer sort of thing, for many people, that's an extremely intuitive way to sort of intend into the system the idea that you want to make real, so that we can then help you with it. So yeah, I love the idea, and I think keep an eye on Studio and the things that we do to it in the future.
A little bit out of everything here. Are you seeing like the connection with quantum technology in what you do? Are you using any type of, I don't know, quantum neural networks or quantum machine learning, whatever, to produce what you produce or not? Thank you.
Was that for Sam? Or was that for everybody?
I mean, anyone, you're building the industry, so I think all of you have.
No, I don't think so. Maybe. I mean, it's possible that one of our service providers is using this technology without telling us, but to my knowledge, no.
Rithik, have you seen anything in your travels?
With quantum technology, you said? No papers as of yet, but I did go to Chicago a couple months ago for their tech week, and there was a lot of quantum exploration there. I haven't seen as much integration with AI and music, but they do have more broader integrations with AI from my understanding. So to answer your question to the best of my ability, I think that it's only a matter of time before we see that integration.
There is an artist called Ela that you can check out in London. I know that they're working with quantum a bit, so check out what they're doing. They're really interesting. Brilliant, there you go. Hope everyone heard that, Gareth. Everyone go and ask Gareth later. Okay, one more question before we got to wrap it up. This guy, well.
We have 2 questions. Should we collect them?
Yeah, let's do both. We can do it. We can do this, guys. We've got 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the nice discussion of this topic. And actually, before of this, I was conducting another presentation, and there are another panel about another issue of AI music detection. So I would like to ask if you have, in your roadmap, or you have the will as a company that creates such kind of asset to help on this direction.
I'm actually not sure. I will say personally that I have nothing but support for the idea of more transparency around the people's creative processes.
Rithik, anything to add on that about AI music detection?
Okay, so one thing I know is I think that it's actually a pretty important issue to address altogether. I think it'll help with, development of the conversation later down the line. Especially, I know, and I'm not sure how many of you guys know this, the Grammy rejects AI-generated music, which is quite interesting. And, if they continue to do so, there'll probably be more, it's likely that there will be AI-generated submissions. So I think if they want to continue keeping that stance, detection on that front is very important. I also know that, it's not necessarily the same thing, but it's in a similar vein. I know Lucas, who gave a panel earlier, is working on that at Transparent Audio. And, he's working on AI watermarking, watermarking of generated music, which I think is one step in the right direction towards figuring out, okay, how do we want to separate AI music from human-made music, if at all?
So, work to be done.
Exactly.
Last question, then. There was the one last question.
Yeah, hi. Wow. I'm Martin. I would like to reflect, and it's okay if nobody wants to answer this, by the way, or isn't allowed to answer this. So large language models, large music models have all been trained on every available bit of data ever, right? This has been scraped, this has been ingested, this has been trained on. That's why things sound good. If you've ever used one of the more ethically trained models, you know the difference between that and, for example, Suno, right? So to make this question maybe slightly palatable, I just wanted to end on this note. Um,
And we've got to call it there, and thank you everyone for coming.
So how, to make the question slightly palatable, is like, so what would you define? Because so if you look at Rebecca, right, with the AI contest, like ethics is super important. We had the last panel where it was about assistive AI. Ethics is super important. How do you three, from your respective positions, view ethics in generative AI?
Okay, go on. Quick each, go for it.
Okay. I think that ethics are very important with generative AI, as they are in other aspects of music. I don't know how many of you guys were here for Sarah's panel at the beginning, but you know, the work of forensic musicology means determining whether copyright infringement occurred. You know, and that goes as far back before sampling, like sampling is a big part of that, but also, you know, before that, if you copied a melody just by hearing it, there, you know, that's the practice of forensic musicology is the determinant for, you know, whether someone really stole IP. And I think that, you know, as we develop this technology, we have to take the same or maybe more developed approach to determining whether something really is a reflection of copyright infringement or not. So I think ethics are a big part of that. And, you know, tying it back to Joker Deck, we want to make sure that, you know, the people that we support are really making the music industry a better place. This is a huge part of our mission because the whole idea of mentorship means that we want to bring people into the fold that, you know, can really make a positive impact on things. And, you know, obviously this is a case-by-case basis, but personally, I feel that ethics are important to determine, you know, who should really be getting those pieces of the pie.
Sam, let's go to you. I know we're over time, but I know that everyone wants to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, I don't have much of great interest to say on this subject. I think I will just acknowledge it's very important to get these things right. And I think there's a lot that often goes underappreciated on the benefits that come from the resulting technology to sort of help people express themselves, to help you know, people accelerate and scale up their music careers in ways that wouldn't have been possible without the tech. So, yeah, there's a lot there. I personally am quite grateful to get to be a part of the group that I am a part of, and to sort of like see the positive impact that it's having for so many creative people.
Right, I'm sure we could and we should talk about this for several more hours, but we are over time. Thank you so much to the panelists for that, and thank you for everyone for coming.